Good afternoon. Welcome to Paraspar Talk, organized by the Office of Communication in Institute of Science. Today we have Dr. Gururaja KV who will speak on why do frogs do what they do, insights from behavioral ecological studies on the Western Ghats and Urals. Before we begin, I'd like to give a brief introduction of the speaker today. Dr. Gururaja KV is a professor and Dr. TNE Pi Endowment Chair in Amulans, Acoustics and Anthropogenic Climate Change Lab at Srishti Manipal Institute of Art, Design and Technology, Bangalore. His current research is in the field of amphibian ecology, behavior and landscape ecology. He supports a citizen science program, Frog Watch India, and is instrumental in an institute conservation program called Batracium. He has described three novel breeding behavior in frogs, 23 new species of frogs from the Western Ghats, and two new fish species. Uh, Gururaja has published more than 50 papers both in international and national peer-reviewed journals. He has recently published a paper in Nature as a co-author. Title of the paper is Ongoing Declines for the World's Amphibians in the Face of Emerging Threats. He is awarded State Biodiversity Award for Excellence, Government of Karnataka State, India in 2016, and a Geospatial Excellence Award for the Frog Find Android app developed in 2014 and in Prajavani Achievers Award in 2022. He will be visiting ENES lab in France through scientific high-level short-term visit in November-December 2024, funded by French Institute in India, French Embassy. We welcome Guru.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Vitasta. Hope I'm audible. Yeah, great. Wonderful. So, you used those toys and made some noise, right? So, how do you think and what do you think were you able to achieve with that? Any intention? Any intentional sound? Yeah, right? Those who have not seen, please make use of that. So majority of the frogs, the moment you say frogs, we associate them with the sound, right? So that is what I am going to talk about today. So some species will go on like this throughout the night, and perhaps, I don't know about your generation, perhaps if you speak to your forefathers or your grandfather kind of thing, they will tell that, oh, we used to listen to frogs throughout the night. They will give us headache kind of stuff, right? So the entire discussion for next 45 minutes or so, I thought we will start looking at why do frogs do what they do, right? So the overview is basically I work on sound, color and multimodal signaling, and the rest are all beating around the bush kind of stuff. So let's begin with what are amphibians. So you know that amphibians have two life stages. They are vertebrates and they have tadpole fish-like stage, but they are not fishes. And then when they grow and they metamorphose, because they feed on a lot of algal materials, and they will become something like this, right? So, and what we know about them is perhaps 360 million years ago, these species evolved on Earth. And don't ask me what exact date it was, but based on the fossil records, we think it's about 360 million years ago. It's a late Devonian species which has seen a lot of dinosaurs coming and going, and it might even have seen a lot of changes in ice ages and all. Right. Coming to Indian scenario is where we are facing new challenges, as well as it's a kind of both like win-lose kind of situation over here. What is quite interesting is we have about 465 species starting from 1799. What is remarkable is last 25 years we have described over 225 species, almost like every year you have 10 new species being added. So when I was writing my thesis in the year 2002, I clearly remember that I had written there are 220 species of amphibians in India, but we are today 465, thanks to a lot of things, thanks to technology, thanks to enthusiasm, thanks to all the paraphernalia we carry with us, the gumboots, the headlamps, the rainwears, in addition to that the technology. Like you have DNA, you have acoustics, you have many other things that supports you to go and venture and see what's there. But we could have celebrated that part and said, oh, we are one of the richest among the amphibians in the world. But the issue is we don't know much. All the discoveries, we stop there, and beyond that we don't know anything. And that is where this paper also becomes crucial. We published last September, which is saying that climate change is going to be the new thing that is going to threaten the amphibians, and amphibians are the most threatened vertebrate group in the world. 41% of total 8,000 plus species, 41% of them are under threat. And the major threat that is emerging out is the climate change. So we need to seriously put our heads together to understand what's happening. So this is just a number game, don't worry too much, but what you need to really figure out is all the red arrows. So where we are, what is happening kind of. So we have, when like I just finished my PhD and joined CES in 2003, that is when the first global amphibian assessment was done. And from then for almost 20 years, there was nothing. So during COVID times, about 1,000 scientists across the globe put their heads together to do the amphibian assessment, and what we found is an increase in endangered vulnerable species. So whatever we thought not evaluated, the blue bar that you see, they're all transforming into those 3 red arrows going up. So with that, I will move to why we really need to care about. There are quite a few instances over here. You need not have to really correlate everything to everything else. There's a strong saying in majority of the cultural things saying, if the frog croaks, there's going to be rain. That's one thing, and which is quite obvious in this video too. So this is a frog marriage, and I will not speak for next 2 minutes. That's for those who don't know Kannada, that's Varuna, and that is Varsha. Varuna is a male name, Varsha is a female name. But the frog that they carry, or like they've just exchanged the sex. Gender. So marry them off. You can see a vocal sac coming out from there. Though they think that that's a female, but it's not a female, that's a male. Yeah, you can see the vocal sac over there. So the blue color thing. Okay. I will stop it there. So that is one way of looking at the frog world, the croaking world, where you associate your cultural embedded practice in saying that if you marry them off, you're going to get rain. The other thing is here, where this is possibly for me the oldest recorded thing available on frogs. I'm not going to be very religious in all this aspect, but what really captivated me are the 2 stanzas which talked about the color and the pattern. and the croaking. So they say that one bellows like cow and the other bleats like a goat. So somebody has, I don't know the year also, let's not worry about it, but there is an evidence that people have observed that there is a behavior, there is a croaking, there is a pattern in frogs, and that's what matters to me, right? So if you carefully observe what they said, it's also I think you can see or listen to in this sound too. These are frogs. Nobody's chanting anything over here, but it appears like someone is chanting, right? So perhaps these are the reasons where people start associating with frogs, marriage, culture, religion, and all. But what I do is I will take you beyond all these things. We will try to see how do frogs produce their sound. So frogs do have uh, this is the lungs, and then they push the air, and then the vocal cords vibrate, the air comes out, and then you have a vocal sac, and that amplifies the sound, and that's how the sound is produced. So for those who wants to know what sound is, sound has two properties. One is the pressure and the other one is the frequency. So, and frog's vocal sac is also quite important because many instances this is very circular. So when the sound is produced, it is not coming only from one direction, it will go in all the dimensions kind of thing, right? So that's very key. So is very easy to navigate. Let us see some frog species. This is one of the common toad which makes this kind of sound. So that's the vocal sac. If I can ask all of you to close your nose and mouth and make sound, can you produce any sound? Can you do it for a bit? Let's see. Even for 2 seconds, what kind of sound you produce? Close your nose, close your mouth, and produce sound. Right? That's the croaking sound that you can get. Apart from that, any other sound? Can it be so loud? So why do frogs can produce such sounds? Any thought? So when you close your nose, when you close your mouth, where does air have to go? So it will be here. Whereas in frogs, it will come into the vocal sac, and that's where it can amplify. And also when it deflates, the air can go back into the lungs. So you have a mechanism where you are not losing air, but you will have a closed system where the air can be pumped through the vocal cords, vibrates and gets into the chamber and deflate and go back into the lung. So like that, you can do it for entire night. That is where frogs can croak throughout the night. Whereas me or you, I think after 10-15 seconds or even while speaking, I'm taking involuntarily some air in, I'm expelling some air out, right? I can't do like this. You will not be able to hear. Luckily, frogs are there to tell us how you can do it in a very effective manner. There are species, you can see. So this is another toad species. And many instances, if you continuously listen to it for more than 2 minutes, you will definitely get some headache because the frequency is so high, right? And then you have toads which are capable of climbing onto the trees. I'm not telling about the names, don't worry about the names, we are not worried about names. What we are should be looking at is what they are doing and how they are trying to communicate. What is the behavior over here, right? And then you have some species like this. So all these species are from India, from Western Ghats, in and around Bangalore. Okay, they are not coming from elsewhere. These are all from here. This is perhaps the earlier one. How many of you have done bird watching? Do you recognize a bird species in this? No? Yes? Kingfisher, yes. So first time when somebody showed me, I was saying, oh, why are you showing me a kingfisher sound and saying this is a frog? But only to realize I was wrong. Right. And vocal sac also comes in different shapes and sizes. Some have circular, some have bilobed, and then you will see some don't have any, and they have background noise, right? And some just make sound like an insect. That's insect buzz like zzz, zzz. That's like croaking your heart out, right? So that's a termite. You can imagine what is the size of the frog, right? I will move to the next one. Okay, I'll move further. I don't know whether I have a network connection or not, but this is fine. If it works, it's fine. It's okay. It's okay. We will see later, if at all we find time. Okay. Can you see anything there? That's the frog there. That's the egg clutch. And when it croaks, it deflates the vocal sac on the sides. Okay. And then you have species like this. That's what we were able to produce when we closed our nose and mouth, right? Okay. Right. We'll go further. 4 more and then we'll move forward. You can observe the nostril movements and all. You can see that, you can see the air is being taken in, the lungs fills up with the air, and that's the sound, right? And then you have species like this. And then you have species like this. Now this is from India. This is some species in coffee estates of Coorg. Those are coffee leaves, Coffea robusta. Right. Okay. And then you have species like this. Right. Then if you are able to see this, that's only good, otherwise also good. Can you see anything there? Right. So frogs produce these kind of sounds. So for what? Why do they have to produce these kind of sounds? Mating calls, then communication, well and good, yep. Danger. So majority of the frogs, like if you put all the amphibians together, there are 8,400, 500 species. Of that, 8,000 species are frogs and toads, right? They are called anurans. Among that, 95% of them, only the males croak. Females don't croak. Females just listen. Only in few species, females also croak and reciprocate. All the communication then is to communicate either their presence or to mark the territory or to communicate something. So many instances there are context dependent calls. So it is not straight away saying that, oh, for mating they are just croaking. No, there are instances where there are initial stages of croaking, there are stages where they have reached the pinnacle, and there are stages where they want to recede, right? So there are many different ways to look at the croaking things. So what we did was we tried to figure out some acoustic niches in Western Ghats, and what we used is simple basic physics, right? You do a Fourier transformation and see what spectral analysis can be done on frog, right? So there is a call over here, right? So this is a recording done through some audio mod devices. These are all programmable passive acoustic monitoring devices. You keep it, you program it saying every 10 minutes record 1 minute, and then it will do it for long, however long you want, what is the battery life as well as your memory card. It will start like keep recording. So once it does, the software that you use will convert that waveform and the energy spectrum into something like this, where you can see the sound. Right? Now you have the AI to even decipher these kind of bits of sound and say in your call what are the species available, right? In this particular call, you can hear that the last portion is where a toad species starts croaking, right? And you can also see them in the red band over there. This portion is where this energy is highest. So it's about 3 kilohertz, 2.5 to 3 kilohertz is where it was croaking. Similarly, if you look at this, oops, where am I going? This is the bird call like sound. What you see is those calls here. This is the line. This is a continuous line of insect sound, right? So there are tonal variation that you hear in frog sounds, right? So what we then try to do is figure out whether there are some partitioning that happens in frogs, because if everybody croaks, who is going to listen to? So have frogs found their ways of communication in partitioning themselves? So they can do it spatially, they can do it temporally. So in time and space, if you segregate, it's possible. But many of them do it through their spectral spectrum of sound, right? So for example, this particular frog called whatever, don't worry about the name, I don't want to mention the name, it croaks in a different way. That's the sound. I'll just play it again. Chi 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 chi. Right, and then you have another frog which is smaller than that croaks only that, beep, beep, right? And then if you see where they occupy in a habitat, you can see that the peep peep kind of sound comes from the edge of the streams, whereas the loud sound that comes from the middle of the stream. So this is where we start looking at what is happening over here. So have they evolved in this manner about the landscape? So you have something called as acoustic adaptive hypothesis, where an area is built first and then the frog comes and occupies in that area, and then it starts croaking in a particular manner to suit and not to overstep on other species. So we did that analysis and then we figured it out that yes, yeah, this is the bottommost one, Kotigara dancing frog, and then you have other species over here. Let us just check. how they make the sound. Right, and then let's see here also. Right, and then right. So what we did was we just used the acoustic data. We did the analysis and figured out what is the peak frequency, number of calls, the delta time and all, and then we also measured the sound pressure level. What is the background sound? So what it clearly showed is large species which have their own sound kind of thing, they segregate and they occupy in the center of the streams, whereas the smaller ones will go towards the lesser noisy habitats. So that's a good indication that species try to figure out where they want to be, right? And they figure out their own niches. They don't want to overstep or put the, like, there is no conflict and they croak. So that is sound part. And if you go towards color part, which is another domain where I'm interested in looking at. Right. So you have seen the color over there. It's yellow, which is predominantly during breeding season they will get yellow. There's another video by Gopal Krishna Hegde. Right. And I think I have another video. Let's pass a bit over here. Why do you think there is yellowness over here? To attract a male? Because all males are yellow. If you have observed it clearly, in this video also, I will just play it again. Let's go back. If you see, all the yellow ones are males. And you can see when the amplected pair comes in between, see that this is not yellow, that's a female. So a crude analogy which I generally give is like if you have observed Oscar award nights, how do the male come to the function? In a tuxedo, right? But the female can be any color. Males have to be in a tuxedo. Why? Because that determines how well your biceps or your body structured kind of thing, because you have a uniform color with which you can make the differences. And males need not have to go towards male, but you know that okay, that's the area where the males are sitting, I need not have to be there, I have to be with the females. So males are using a visual cue over here. Instead of spending time with another male, if you are yellow, you need not have to spend the time with the male, you can figure out where the female is which is not yellow in color. So we did a small experiment where we used 3D models. These are the real individuals and these are the model individuals. So we try to pose these model individual to the population and see what is happening. So out of 12 times the experiment done, 10 times the male will go towards a dark colored model, right, and even amplecked. Right. So what it indicates is that there is a visual selection of the individuals and color also matters, right. So that's one of the thing with frogs, say they look at colors. So now we have heard about sound, we have seen the color. Now there is another instance over here which is for me quite intriguing in 2004 itself. This is being 20 years of research on this species. You can see it does something over there. And in response, this guy also does. And then they kick each other. You can try this out as a yoga step. Okay, you will definitely burn more calories. I have never been successful in doing this foot flagging behavior. Not possible at all. Either you will fall flat or you will have your leg stuck somewhere. You can't move it also. Right. So why do you think they do this behavior? So you earlier saw there is vocalization. That's what you said, the communication channel. And then we saw something where you change the color. That's also communication channel. But here the species are croaking and then showing off with their legs. This is also a way of communication. This is called multimodal communication, where you try to communicate saying that this is perhaps my territory, don't come near. So initially when this was shown and I was like really impressed with the foot flagging behavior, we thought it's something similar to Salman kind of stuff, like show off the biceps to the female. But in this video, you are not seeing any female there. It's between two males. And why do they do it? Because they want to have their territory maintained. And the territory is some 30 square centimeters. And if I talk about tiger territory, it's 60 square kilometers. And my frog's territory is only this much stone, right? And they are fighting for that. And we did this experiment way back in 2010-12 when Doris was here. I will come to that later, but I just want to show you why we called it as a dancing frog. Just a few video clips. Let's see. Oops. Should work. Okay. Yeah. So there is a male on top, the female is below there. What she is trying to do is she is trying to create a cavity in a stream and trying to put the eggs inside. And then they try to release the eggs inside that cavity, and male fertilizes them by shedding the sperm, because it's an external fertilization in frogs. There's no way they'll stay together. The male leaves and female then dances over the egg clutch. I think I will show this, right? And move small pebbles on the egg clutches so that egg is buried now inside the water. Okay, and the egg will hatch out. These are samophilic, and they will come out of the burrowing later on, right? So this kind of behavior is not just only in Western Ghats species. There are many other species in South, like in Malaysia, you have many species over there. South America also. Even in Australia, you have species which do foot flagging, but their foot flagging is completely different from the foot flagging that happens in Western Ghats. Their foot flagging is mainly to attract the mate, because there is background noise which is enormous. So like if you are speaking in a bus stand or in a railway station, how do you speak? You increase your pitch, right? You have to shout out. Why do you do that? Because there is constant background noise, so that you will not be able to communicate very well. That's why you shout. In those species where in Malaysia and all, they will do a shouting and then do the flagging in order to show off. They have a flashy color on their legs to the female, like this one over here. Can you see it here? Can you see it there? These are all show off to the mates. Whereas the one in Western Ghats, when they show off, there is no color. There's nothing to show off. And their show off, as you have seen in that video, it is more to do with territorial behavior. It is not to impress the female, but to defend the territory with the males. So that's the experiment we carried out. And what we figured out, I will not go in detail, is that there are certain activities and male-male agonistic behavior. We were able to figure it out. All these are available, guys. Don't worry about the graphs and all. So it was more about like male-male agonistic behavior, nothing else. So it is not to impress the female, but to defend the territory. We also try to figure out whether there is any information in the sense of reflectance hidden, whereas the species from Malaysia, they had reflectance coming almost in the visible band everywhere, whereas the Western Ghats one didn't have any reflectance at all. We also mapped something of the movement, right? These are all very simple experiments to do, but if you know how to do, then it becomes good output to look at. So what we did was we try to put a point on the place, let's say on the center of the foot, and then try to map it where it moves. And if you see the Malaysian species, which has larger area to cover, whereas the Western Ghats one has small area to cover. It again corroborated with our thinking that when you want to display and to impress, you will wave larger, right? You will do a lot of tamashas with your handling of your body, legs and all. Whereas to fight, you need not have to do all those things. You just have to go and kick. So that's what the Western Ghats species is doing, right? So with that, I shift to the behavioral part. So why I am channelizing this is in a way, these are all simple observation. You can also do it if you have a piece of land where there are frogs. This can be very common species also. Like we have in the campus, there is a Sri Lankan painted frog here and common toads. And nearby areas you have common tree frogs. We don't even know what kind of behavior they have. It could be easy to do the studies and see what's happening over there. This is one of my favorite behavior to begin with in breeding behaviors. So this got published as a paper. What is the behavior? Let's just see the behavior, because movies are also made out of this particular behavior. So again, this is an endemic species. We observed it in 2006. The male is there, which makes the sound like tuk tuk, and the female responds to it. Before that, she inspects where she is going to lay the eggs. That's the twig on which she is going to lay eggs. And then she accepts the male, and that's where we call as amplexus. The female is below, the male is above. And just at the time of laying eggs, they do a handstand. They put their heads in the water, and the cloaca will come over here and she releases the eggs over there. Right, and that's the same place where she touched earlier, right? She attaches all those eggs. They are very sticky. They are about 8 eggs. But the interesting part is the male comes back, right? Who was in that area only. He comes back and he does something called plastering of those eggs. So he takes the mud, plasters those eggs, and he does it for more than 40 minutes, not 1 or 2 minutes, right? So this kind of investment post laying of egg is called parental care. In some species, they carry on their back. In some species, they wait till the egg hatches out. In some cases, they spend time in covering the eggs and seeing what is happening over there. Again, this is a very natural history kind of observation, but it has opened a lot of things for us. So we even did an experiment where just after laying of eggs, we picked up the male and left him 5 meters away. And in the midnight at 2 AM, he comes back and plasters those eggs. So that means there is a sense of understanding of this landscape in frogs, okay? But we need to do this as an experimental basis. So yeah, and similarly, we started looking at multiple species. There are species which don't plaster, but they protect, they attend the eggs that they have laid, but they are different in the croaking. This is how one of the species croaks. Then there is a species called jogue night frog, which whistles, but it doesn't lay eggs in the water. It goes on a leaf, on a shrub, right, and lays eggs over there. And then you have the kumbara, then you have humayuni. Again, I'm not going to mention the names, but just observe that the kind of behavior they are exhibiting. Again, this is on a rock. The male leads the female and they amplect and they release eggs and they move out, but their calls are similar. Right, this is Petraeus, this is from Mahabaleshwar, and this one is called the Sylvaticus. The sound is loud. Oops. That's the sound, but this species is pretty large. It is about 80 millimeters, and they really threaten you if you go closer to the eggs, right? But there is no mud plastering. So if you look at all these things, and then you plot, you see that it is something similar to Darwin finches. Have you heard about Darwin finches? Right. So when you are on the same place, when there are multiple other species are competing, you have to evolve yourselves completely differently, right? So the species like this, which are together, the Kumbara, Kempole and Jog, when they are together, their breeding is completely different. But if you see Petraeus, Humayni, Jog, who are on different hillocks, and they are separated by at least some 50 kilometers kind of thing, they have similar kind of breeding behavior, right? So Galapagos Islands also, finches have the similar kind of stuff. So if they are on different islands, the finches are in a similar kind of, they have a similar kind of beaks. Whereas if they are in the same island, they adapt or they modify their beaks to get different kinds of food. Some will be frugivore, some will be insectivore, that kind of stuff. So it's the same thing here. In order to not to crossbreed, they have evolved different breeding behaviors. I think with that I will come to the last part. So in all these things, what is that we can do as citizens, not as scientists, but what is that you and me can do? Go out, observe during monsoon, don't sit at home. You have, all of you have smartphones nowadays. If you can record sounds, please do that. Do it for 2 minutes and put it up. Let us see what happens over a period of time. In majority of the citizen science, this is the key thing. So you will not know on the next day what is the outcome. But if you collect it for long durations, let's say 10 years, then you can clearly say this is what is happening kind of stuff. So yeah, so ask good questions, experiment and find answers. I think with that I conclude. Thank you very much.
You said about parental care, but that is usually after the eggs hatch or something. This is a different word for that, protecting the eggs is a different behavior.
Yeah, yes. So even parental care word itself is being like questioned, because what is parental care for us is different from the frog word. So because these are external fertilized individuals, the amount of energy they spend on amplexus itself ends with laying of eggs. So that whatever they spend after that towards the egg is what we call as parental care. So it can be just attending the eggs or plastering the eggs or carrying the eggs on the back. All these things will be part of parental care.
Just wondered, could you kind of expand on why are frogs so endangered? What makes them specifically so vulnerable to climate change?
Wow. So one of the basic thing about frogs is that they are ectotherms. They don't have their own body temperature. So if you carry a frog here, within 2 minutes, it will turn the temperature to this environment, right? And they also have a very specific temperature range within which they can survive well. Like between 10 to 30 degrees, they can easily go around and all. But anything happens beyond that, they can't survive. So you have seen that clearly happening in an urban system like this. IISc has green cover, you have some species. The moment you remove all these things, you build only complexes, you will see only hardy species. I am not saying all species will go, but toads might survive in a nook and corner of your complex, otherwise all other species will not be there at all. So that makes them very vulnerable to even subtle small changes in environment or temperature kind of stuff. And that is what is making them go really like extinct perhaps in certain places or local extinction in certain places. So for example, in Bangalore, if you go outside, let's say if you go towards Bannerghatta in south or if you go towards airport on north, you'll still find at least 10 to 13 species in any of the water bodies. But if you come towards center, hardly 3 species. It's a clear indication. Yes, yes, yeah, yeah. We don't have an evidence to say what was there, what is not there. The only reported thing is 1999, where WW has brought out a small booklet on Bangalore animals. In that, there is a list of 16 species. Ranjit Daniels and Karthik Srinivas, who is from Jungle they wrote that list of species. But again, it doesn't say where in Bangalore they are. It's a really challenging thing, yeah.
Hi, very interesting talk. This is a live question. But you mentioned that only male frogs croak.
Yeah.
And females rarely croak.
Yeah.
Is this only within like the mating context or?
Majority of the things. So because female will be spending more energy on number of eggs and laying of eggs. So that's where she will be more focused on listening to rather than croaking herself, right? Yeah, that is one of the reasons that they are trying to give. But yeah, obviously in majority of the frogs, female only listens because their tympanum, the inner papillae, basilar and amphibian papillae, they are all tuned to two kinds of sounds, low frequency as well as high frequency. They only listen to, they receive the signals and then process, and then the breeding process happens. Yeah.
So then does this
There's a question.
oh
So, in the presentation, there was a mention of sympatric and hemopatric.
Okay, sympatric means where it belongs to the same place. Allopatric is from different places. That's all. There's one here and then one here and then, yeah. Yeah.
So, regarding the communication thing.
Yes,
So,
yes.
does this mean that the females communicate less?
May not be, that is not true, because you have to, like in the breeding period, you have to accept and reproduce, right? So there are communication, but we have, it is not obvious, like we are also biased in the sense, we only listen to the sounds and then study the frog, right? So we are not seeing from the female's perspective at all. All said and done, at the end of the day, as a scientist, what I am seeing is how the frogs are producing the signal and somebody is receiving the signal. But I am not seeing from the receiver's perspective. They may be responding to.
But
Yeah.
maybe different.
Different ways, yeah. Yes, please. There's one there, there's one here.
Sir, and when has all the wildlife animals comes near human beings, and in India it goes away, sir? Question one, and question two: what food should we give to frogs?
Oh, okay. I don't want you to keep any frogs as pets, so let them be in the field. I am not for keeping as pets. Okay, don't do any of those things because we really don't know. Saying all these things, if you ask me what frog eats, I will give a general response saying that they will eat some insects, crickets, kind of stuff. But beyond that, I don't know specific things. For example, some species eat termites, some species eat the other species, and they are tadpoles, they are cannibalistic. But if we don't know any of those things, how can I simply feed milk to a frog? It shouldn't happen in that manner. So I would definitely say don't keep any pets unless you know a frog, and even if you know, don't try to keep it at your home, because nowadays the toads are known to have toxin in the glands, which is cardiotoxic. And if you have seen your cats and dogs, if had bitten a toad, they froth through their mouth because of the cardiotoxic things. Okay, so be careful. It's not necessary for you to catch a frog and hold a frog kind of thing. So let them be in the natural environment. Yes, sir. Sorry. Yeah.
So, in your talk, you explained that the croaking and the landscape is connected.
Correct.
So, I have a question like if there are, say, 10 frogs in the same landscape.
Correct.
So, what makes their croaking distinct from each other?
Wow.
Is it like the pulse they make, there is some gap, or the frequencies distinct?
So I have mentioned about the author also. I think there is Mark B, who has worked in University of Texas. You can refer to his paper. One of his student was Vivek Nityananda from CES. He worked with him. There are multiple ways in which this is called cocktail party problem. So when there are multiple individuals of not just same species but different species are croaking together, how does a female recognize its counterpart? So one of the analysis says this is called dip understanding. Like if the frequencies are going and the last part of that, it comes down with the frequency ranges and all. The female picks that up. That is one kind of study. In certain points, they also say that it's the pulse of certain frequencies, which is like, even in the crowd, if somebody closer to you speaks hello, you are able to recognize him, even though he need not have to tell the entire sentence. By just listening to the hello, you will say, oh, this guy is there. How do you do that? Because you will associate with that particular pulse of that individual. So perhaps the female does all these things when she is listening to. But again, this is a whole different world of analysis that they were able to do it. Please refer to Mark B's paper. It was published in 2015. I think I have mentioned it somewhere. It's here, yeah. B, 2015 paper. Cocktail party effects. Yeah. Yes, please.
Is there any relation between the difference between terrestrial croaking and then, let's say, a
Yes, yes.
pond? Because I was seeing a pond susceptible to like danger from
Correct.
the water.
Correct. 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 Definitely, there are studies which have shown how a species which croaks on trees is different from which croaks from water to that which croaks on land.
So, are they in general louder on land or something?
That we don't know. So the loudness is associated with the pressure. Frequency is associated with the wavelength, right? So it doesn't matter. So sometimes frog use baffled wall to enhance the louder, like even though they croak very feeble, but they will get that baffled wall kind of thing, and then that can be listened by a female which is far off. So they can make use of those things. At the same time, it can also invite a predator. So the frogs which are croaking in water, generally if they don't croak, snakes, you would have seen some of those small reels where they will move over the frog, they will not eat. But if they croak at that point in time, that vibration would invite the snake to just feed them. So there are many things to look at. We are, I think, at the surface at this point in time in Indian scenario. Hello.
I was just wondering, the amphibians may have salamanders plus snails.
Yeah.
Frog.
Sorry.
Why frog has?
Wonderful question. So this I don't know, but evolutionary wise, if you look at Roland's paper in 2007, he says speciation has taken a burst with the evolution of angiosperms kind of thing. So perhaps you have a correlation over there because you have more land, different land uses that was formed on the land where frogs were capable of utilizing that, and that's why you have more diversity. These are very speculative responses, but yeah, there is one reason is that. So when the angiosperms evolved, you suddenly see the evolution of or speciation of tree frogs, large number of tree frogs.
I read some stories that human exploits especially frogs. They catch large number of frogs and export. And such activities, whether is it one happening in India, in southern part of Western Ghats?
Yeah. Till 1984, we were the largest exports of frog legs. It's a larger frog that in India we have called bullfrogs, and what we means as humans eat is the legs. Then no other part in the frog body is like you can't consume. It's all peritoneum, so you'll just have fluids and all. So they'll chop the legs and eat it. And these frogs will grow to about 400 grams. Only legs are taken, and that was a horrendous thing to see. Like you will chop off and you eat kind of thing. Till 1984, it was happening, and we used to fetch about $4 per pair of legs. And then I think Humayun Abdul Ali from BNHS wrote a letter, and then there was a complete ban. Having said that, has it been banned? No. If you go towards Goa and if you move towards Kerala, you still can get jumping chickens on your plate. I have two things to say here. One is that as long as it's a bush meat and somebody is consuming for the local food kind of thing, I think it should be allowed. For example, in Northeast, they also eat a lot of frogs, right? It has not troubled their population. The moment it becomes a commercialized kind of thing, for example, Nasica batrachus, the tribal people were eating it long back. They still eat it, right? when it becomes commercializing, oh, I also want to eat the tadpoles of Nasica batrachus, and then it is commercially harvested, that is where the population will start going, right? As long as it is done in a localized manner, I think I am up for consuming some of these things naturally. So you need not have to really worry, because as you remove certain individuals, there is a replenishment from the system and adding some of the individuals, right? So it is always a good thing to take out. But if you do it in rampant way, saying that everybody wants to eat it, then that is where the decline will start happening. Yes, please.
One more question.
Yes.
So let's say, have you ever seen any species that has one form in one niche, has a different form in different niche? Like an axolotl has a form when it's underwater,
Yeah.
and then there's this black form that's on land. So
Yeah.
have you observed any of the species?
Nothing like that. No.
Hi, great now. So, we understand the degree of sociality in toads and frogs. Like, do they communicate across species in a non-mating context?
Correct.
And,
Maybe we are yet to arrive at there, because even the torrent frogs that I spoke about, how it is channelized, why it has to be in a noisy zone, whether the noise comes from their own calls. So we are looking at that as of now, but otherwise this is where we need to push now our research towards. Yeah.
Do we know that how anthropogenic changes, like if a road is made in between and there is noise because of the vehicles and all of that, like, or like windmills, there's a lot of noise because of that.
Correct.
And does that affect like how they croak and then
Correct.
frequency and all of that?
Correct.
Do we know any studies?
Yes. There is one study from New Zealand. Christiana Paris has done urban noise effects on frog populations kind of thing. Like how you have a London-based study on the great tit, where they increase the pitch to communicate. Similarly, the frogs in New Zealand also increase their pitch. But the only problem here is when you change your pitch, perhaps the female is unable to recognize, right? Because it's the tuning of the ear pinna that says this is the species you have to mate with. So if that is changed, how does she recognize, right? So having said this, there is no concrete evidence to say that this has changed, this is what is impacting kind of thing. I have worked in the air side of Bangalore airport as well as in Hyderabad airport. What happens is, the moment when the sound air blast happens, when the aeroplane lands, when the air blast happens, the frogs which are chorusing will diminish their pitch, and then all of a sudden they will increase their pitch. I don't know if it is 1 or 2 times, it's fine, but over a long period of time, I think they will evolve for these kind of sounds, and that will, if that gets genetically imprinted, then their population is going to have impacts. What kind of impacts? I think we need to study and see. Yeah, because evolution is a very slow process, but what we are trying to do is accelerated pace. So you push them into these kind of sounds, you push into the land use changes kind of stuff. So how a species has to respond? The species which are capable, like toads or skittering frog, which are capable of withstanding these adverse things, they survive. Which are very sensitive, like the endemic species, they start vanishing from that place. So ultimately you will end up in having homogenized species, or the hardy species remains, like human beings. Yeah. Correct. So again, we call it as sexual dichromatism, right? Why male and female differ? It also differs in terms of like 2 ways. One is called the dynamic color change, where in the breeding season they will turn yellow, but once the breeding season is over, they will be back into normal color kind of thing. That's dynamic color change. There is some species which are ontogenic, like from the beginning, female is different from male. Males are yellow, females are brown, or something of that sort, right? So if you look at it, whoever is a prolific breeder during the monsoon or the rainy season, they have these kind of dynamic color changes, because they will put all the energy in changing the color. They don't want to invest in anything else, breed for that period, and then move away from that area. So this has been seen. Yellow is the more predominating color compared to any other color. But having said that, if you look at the moor frog in Europe, they will turn from brown to blue for only 4 days, and then they turn back into brown, right? So this all based on what kind of area, what kind of breeding behavior, like chorusing behavior you have, and for that you perhaps adapt to the color changes.
The second question is that, like, you mentioned that the graph, like, if the species mentioned in different territories, so to avoid crossbreeding.
Correct.
So has there been any crossbreeding event that happened also for variation?
As of now, we don't know anything in India, but there is a natural hybrid species that has happened in, I think, Rana ridibanda, which is the only known hybrid species in Europe. There is a natural hybrid that has happened. Otherwise, we have not seen. But having said that, again, there are instances where people have seen different species amplecting with each other. Like if you put a tree frog in front of yellow colored toad, it will simply go and grasp it. Why? Because it is seeing that as a different color, which is a female. That's what it perceives. But mating may not happen at all.
Last question is that, like, the frogs, they also show camouflage.
Correct. 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 Yeah.
That is for, like, for different.
Could be. Yeah. So when they have these kind of colors, I think what the ability is in terms of their acoustics, I think they will be more enhanced rather than color wise kind of. Yeah.
What is the male-female ratio?
Oh, it is very skewed. One female will have more than 10 to 15 males. That's the sex ratio. And it also differs with species to species. Like if they are bush frogs and all, it can go up to 20 males per female. Right? If it is common toads, it can come at around 15 males for one female. It is definitely not 1:1. It's very skewed.
Okay, I have two quick questions.
Yes, please.
One is, what is the backstory? How did you get drawn to investigating on frogs? And
Oh.
second is, what is your current research?
Oh, okay, okay, wonderful. So the story goes back to my master's times when I was a bird watcher from my high school days. Thanks to my brother sitting over here, who used to take me around my native place Shumaga, and we used to do birding. But during master's program, my professor asked me to do a checklist of the campus. I said, I had already done it. Can I do something else? And that is where he said, can you work on frogs? And that's the shift. And again, on that particular day, he said there are Nyctibatrachus, blah, blah, blah. Some four or five species he showed. I couldn't understand any of them. I said, since I'm very inquisitive kind of person, I just jumped into, and rest is history. And even on the first day when he gave me a frog, I was not able to hold it properly. It slipped through my hand. It is slimy, icky, all the feelings were coming out. But what captivated me finally are the pairs of eyes. This is fabulous. You can just forget everything else. You can just stare at their eyes. They will also stare back at you. They will question you all the things, saying that we are 360 million old, you are 2 lakh year old, what are you doing to us? You can respond to all those questions. So that's how I got into. Again, Nyctibatrachus was fabulous species. It's an aquatic species. That's how I started. And master's program, I was able to publish a short note in an international journal. Again, that pumped up all the energy, saying, oh, I can do something. But I'm a very slow guy. It's been 20-25 years. I'm just slowly moving. And I am in an art and design college. An ecologist sitting in art and design college, you will now feel, what is this happening? So that's how the education systems are. In the sense, it's more open in an art and design college compared to a typical academic institutions, where you need to constantly fight for your papers, impact factors, blah, blah, blah stuff. Here you are free. And students ask much vibrant questions for me. It's not typically like you have a definitions kind of, you have to answer this and you argue it out and you win. No, it won't work in an art and design college. They will tease you and cut you into pieces. And you really have to work with them to understand what is happening. So majority of them, when I show all these things, they will say, don't go beyond one slide. Can we stick to that one slide? And I have some 100 questions to respond to. And that's how it works in an art design college. And what I currently work on is looking at acoustics. So I am working on those dancing frogs. I have with Doris and with Matt, we have worked on 7 species. There are 17 more species to go. And across Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka and Goa. And that is not just the sound analysis we are trying to do. We are also trying to do something called as the foot flagging behavior, like how much it does. And we have small Roborana kind of thing. We offer individuals and see whether all the species exhibit this territorial behavior, or there are at least few who are not territorial but to attract, because quite a few individuals also has silver white webbing. The tiny ones have silver white webbing. So why they have silver white webbing? So that's the question that we are looking at. Yeah. Yes, please.
Just integrating explaining human impact on such being in the head. I'm just asking, is there any impact on the behavior of people? Have they come across, or have they come across any kind of technologies to in our urban setting? Because all of your examples are from the network.
Yeah.
Anything on that?
No. No. Coping up with has not come up. Like whatever they are saying is, they have even given stress to the individuals and try to see what happens. Frogs are, especially the hardy species, are quite adaptive to the stresses, and they will emerge out quickly. For example, if it's in a natural condition, a frog takes perhaps 3 months to become an adult from tadpole. Under stressful conditions, they will emerge as adults in 1.5 months. But having said that, the caveat here is the naturally grown ones are larger, whereas the stressed ones are smaller in size. So when the smaller individuals, like when they become small individuals, when they croak, automatically their frequency go higher. So how does a female will respond to that? The answer could be like the female will also go through the same.
Yeah. So I was taking an example of Hollywood, which comes to the human habitat.
Yes. Yeah.
It feels that we make some
Yeah.
that kind of.
No such studies, or at least I am not aware of.
Okay, the last bit.
So how good you are getting research grants for this? And one common question I am able to say in most of the grant applications: what is the societal relevance?
Correct.
How do you answer that?
Correct. So one key thing I have done so far is I have not written any grants from government agencies. I'm very clear. Why? Again, I don't want to go through the red tapeism kind of thing. It's on record. It's fine. Let it be. I cannot be responding to a like very rude questions on my research of 20 years kind of stuff, because they will just say, oh, this is not doable kind of, which I don't want to listen to. So that's why I never applied to. In other places, the relevance is how, like when a vertebrate which has evolved 360 million years ago and which is under threat, which is shown what is happening, you are right next for that. So that is one of the key pitch I will show and tell. This is where we need to conserve. The other things are the most abused word of climate change. What is happening? So I don't have any data to talk about it. Whatever we have, I have a story, I think I have mentioned it in the last slide. We have a story from Ithaca where in 1900 for 13 years, there was a lecturer called Mr. Wright. He used to go out and record when the first call of the frog would happen in Ithaca, all the water bodies in Ithaca. And then after 100 years, Gibbs had done a paper in conservation. He says that the breeding period has shifted 15 days in 100 years, right? So why? It's an obvious answer is related with climate change, right? So if you are like for Indian scenario, where do we have that kind of data? So I pitch in from that perspective, saying that we need people to participate. It's no longer only meant for scientists to look at these kind of things. Can we bring people into it and make them collaborator? It's not that I gather data from you and I publish paper. Can we work together and how can we progress together? And an informed citizen is always a better citizen compared to like only scientists know all these things, we don't know anything. So that is what I pitch for. Yeah.
Thank you, Gururaja.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Engaging lecture, and to the members of the audience for the interesting questions. Spectacular audio
Thank you.
visuals. It was a delight to watch them. Can I have the little girl, please? Elijah, so please hand over the.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening. Perfect.
Please join us for a cup of